Most unusually, my husband and I have been to Milton Keynes shopping. Hardly ever happens. A bit like hurricanes. Anyway, we had a lovely time, had some lunch, and didn't go out till really late, didn't go out till lunchtime actually, but had some lunch in Ask on Middleton Square, went in John Lewis's, bought all sorts of stuff, spent a fortune, but all things we wanted. And then I had been an abortive task of finding something that would really irritate you because I bought a new gadget that you didn't really need, but you'd be cross that I had one, but I couldn't find one, so that was upsetting. So I've come home with my purchase, which I'm going to show you, because this cake is an apricot fruit cake. I used to make this when I used to cater for antique fairs. We used to go to antique fairs and do all the catering, but we also sold cakes. And this is a cake that we sold quicker than we can make it really. It freezes beautifully. It's ideal for a fete because the amount I'm going to show you makes this what I'm also going to show you. I bought these in Lakeland. I was going to buy myself a £1 loaf tin because I have 4 £2 loaf tins, no £1 loaf tin. But then I saw these, which is what we used to use back in the day, and they were 10 for tuppence. And then I bought some £1 liners, and this mix that I'm going to make makes 6 of these. So they're not very big, perfect to sell at a fete, perfect to have out if there's only 2 of you and you don't want a huge cake. Alternative, you can make 2 £1 loaf tins out of it, or you can make a big round tin. It's a very adaptable recipe. It's very, very moist. It is a lovely fruit cake, apricot fruit cake, so called because it has in it a tin of apricots, as you will see from the recipe. We will now whizzle over to my wonderful other machine, my other camera. Here we go. So here are my apricots, which I have drained. And obviously, if you're making half the amount, you're only going to use half this tin. You could freeze the rest, of course. But I'm doing the whole amount, and I'm going to make 6 little tins. So there's my flour, sugar and margarine in there. My cherries are here. My tin opener's there. And these are my almonds, apricots. Bit of an apricot, a couple of weeks. I'm going to cut them not terribly small, but not terribly big, if you see what I mean. So I think in half and then chop them up. They give a lovely moist and almondy sort of flavour to the cake. It's really nice. So you chop those up, and I'll pause it. You don't want to see me chop those up. You see me do 3, that'll be enough. The only trouble with recording, of course, is that I can't listen to the radio or my book on tape, which I'm listening to, which is quite annoying really, but there we are. I love you lots, so don't mind. Now the cherries, if they are really, really gooey, so if they've come from the bottom of the tub, they'll probably be covered in syrup. You might want to rinse them and dry them. It does say washed, dried and chopped, and these are really quite sticky, so I'm just going to run some boiling water over them, get the goo off, because you don't want all that goo in it. Then you want to chop them up. You can chop them up before or after. And when you chop them, again, I'm not going to make you watch me chop cherries, but again, chop each one in about, let me do a whole one. One packet I had was well, all nearly whole, and the next packet were all in bits. I should think in probably quarters is about right, because you want to, when you eat a cherry, you want to know you've eaten a cherry, don't you? I love cherries. Now, the annoying thing is, as I said yesterday when I was recording, things never come in the amounts you want them to. Now, this old-fashioned recipe, very old recipe, says 8 ounces of cherries. Cherries now come in 250 grams, and 8 ounces is 200, I just measured it actually, 8 ounces is 226 grams. So we're 26 grams short, which I don't think is a huge amount of cherries. I'm just going to measure 26 ounces of cherries. Oh, I'm not apparently. It's, can you see them? it's that many cherries. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about 6 cherries. Now, if you use cherries regularly, I would make sure that you have the right amount. If you don't use cherries regularly, I just top up the mixed fruit part of the recipe by a couple of ounces, because if you're, on the other hand, I'm going to make a recipe soon which calls for glacé cherries, and it doesn't use 200 grams, so it might be worth buying 2 pots and save the rest. Anyway, your decision. I will leave it up to you while I go and wash my cherries. It's not something I say to girls very often. I'm washing my cherries. I'm sure I don't need to tell you, but I boiled a kettle. You need hot water because the syrup on them is very sticky. So I boiled a kettle, I ran a little bit of boiling water over them, bopped them up and down a bit, and then ran some boiling water over the rest of them, and that's them done. Interestingly, Marks and Spencer's, I'm going mad. John Lewis's, and indeed all of Milton Keynes, incredibly quiet, hardly anybody there, really good for shopping, just empty. Although the lady in Lakeland assured me that 5 minutes before I'd gone in, the queue had been out the door, but when we went in, there were, I think, three assistants who sort of pursued us saying, "Can I help you? Have you found everything you want?" And nobody, except Bob and I in the store. The one thing I really wanted was a big china mixing bowl, like the one Bob dropped and smashed many years ago now, but I've never replaced it. I've never sort of got around to replacing it. I've got lots of mixing bowls, but it was a lovely big china, proper old-fashioned cream mixing bowl, like you're supposed to have in your kitchen, and I want one. And I thought, oh, they'll have one in Lakeland, but they didn't, so I didn't get one. There you go. So I'm chopping up the cherries, as you can see. And John Lewis's were so short-staffed, there were hardly any staff anywhere. And I spoke to a very nice young man, I was buying glasses at the time, and he said, oh, they've all been pinged. He said, we're not allowed to have our app on whilst we're at work, in case we're pinged whilst we're at work and we have to go home. He said, I was quite hoping to be pinged, I could do with a week off. I said, well, that's fine if you're not ill, isn't it? But it's not an ideal thing if you're then poorly in bed. And he said, well, yeah, I know, but, you know, I just fancied a week's holiday. But yeah, I think it's quite good. I think it's quite a good time to go shopping. And we certainly had quite a nice time. We didn't go very far, I have to say. We went to John Lewis's and Lakeland and asked for our lunch and home. So we didn't trail far. I would have liked to have gone further up. Bob said, oh, let's go to Carluccio's for lunch. And I had to point out that they closed down about 3 years ago. Bless him, he hadn't quite caught up with that. So he was very disappointed at that, because we did always used to go to Carluccio's for our lunch. So that was, but I would have quite liked to have gone, but as you know, walking's not my best activity. Actually, my ankle doesn't hurt at all, but my back is just unbearable, so I can't really walk. So there we are. So that's half the cherries done. I'm going to switch you off again because it's really boring, and I'd rather listen to my book than have you watch me, so I'll see you in a minute. Right, as you've gathered, there are a lot of ingredients that have to be prepared, weighed, measured, chopped, washed, whatever, drained. So a lot of fiddling around to start with, but once it's all ready, it's all ready. So I'm going to light the oven at 180 and then make it. Now, if you have a stand mixer, for this sort of amount of cake, a stand mixer would be ideal, but I'm going to make it in a hand mixer because, you know, the whole business of you don't all have a stand mixer. So I'm not going to use one because I'm good. And we've got 4 eggs, which I've forgotten to get. 1, 2, 3, 4 eggs, and 4 tablespoons of milk. So lots of ingredients. So there's 4 eggs. Oh, there's a bit of a crack. And milk. There we are. So you cream the margarine and the sugar first of all. To do that first. Now you beat in the eggs and the milk, and then you fold in the flour and the fruit. So you might need to, if it starts to curdle, I'm sure you all know this, if it starts to curdle, you need to add a bit of flour to it. So beat in the eggs, we're going to beat them in one at a time. Crack one in. And if I do a tablespoon of milk for every egg, then I know I've done the right amount. 1, 2, and because you've got a lot of ingredients, all this beating is putting lots and lots of air into what will be quite a big mixture, so it's quite good to have all this air beaten in. 3. It's just starting to look a little bit curdled. I'm just going to put, with this last egg, I'm just going to put a tablespoon of flour in, just with this last egg. Did I put the milk in? See, I can't remember. Bum. Did I put the 3 in? Is this 4 or... So maybe I'm a tablespoon of milk short, and you will know that that's no use to me because you're silently watching this in your kitchen, aren't you? We'll know when I play it back, won't we? But that's too late. Right, so there's the mixture. I'll pop my beaters out and fold in the rest of the ingredients. The only problem with working here and not the other end of the kitchen is that I'm a long way from the sink, so I can't pop everything neatly into the sink, which would have been good, but hey ho. Fold in the flour. Now, you know about folding in. I'm sure none of you are new. I'm sure I've only got people who've been before watching this. Fold in the flour means don't beat it in. Don't use a wooden spoon. You could use a spatula, but normally a metal spoon is what you use because that cuts through the mixture gently, doesn't knock out all the air that you've just spent hours beating in. So, fold in the flour a bit at a time. I'm hoping to get these all in the oven before Bob and a very excitable dog who we're minding for a week come back from their walk, and Bob went out for a walk with him just about 5 minutes before it started to pour with rain. Bless him. So I think they'll both be very wet, and I don't suppose for a second he took a coat with him. The dog doesn't have a coat except his woolly one that he wears, so I think I'm going to have wet man and wet dog descending on me. Deep joy. As you can see, quite a lot of mixture now. I've got a big bowl here, my biggest bowl. I think it was knowing I was making these that had the thought of this big earthenware bowl. And actually, of course, they would have had one, I'm sure, in John Lewis's. And when we went back to the car, I said, oh, we'll walk down the side. And I said, oh, can't we walk through the shop? And he said with a heartfelt sigh, well, if you want to. So I knew that he'd had enough of looking at John Lewis's. So we didn't walk back through the shop, so he didn't get one. So there we are. Never mind. We're managing very well. I'm not sure how we'll manage once the fruit goes in. And that's the front door, so prepare for wet dog and wet husband. Oh, and keys crashing around. Are you very wet?
No, not too bad.
Oh, good.
Went for a walk with Phil around the wreck.
Okay.
And Katie.
I'm recording. So now the cookery group know all about what you've been doing. I had told them you've gone for a walk and we're probably coming in wet. Right, so that's all the flour in. In go the cherries and the apricots. Dog chooses this moment to eat his breakfast. Most peculiar. He eats his supper at some point through the night. We obviously don't know when because we're not here. But when you come down in the morning it's gone, but he'll never eat it at supper time. And today's breakfast is just being looked at. I think actually I might put another spoonful of milk in because I can hardly turn this in the bowl. It's really hard. And that's without, so that's apricots and cherries, and I've got all this fruit to put in. 1.5 pounds of fruit. This will be fun. See why I need a big bowl, can't you? Did I say, I don't think I did say, I didn't have any dried fruit, mixed fruit. I had lots of currants and lots of sultanas and lots of raisins, so I just did a mixture, which means it has no peel in it, but I don't think that matters. Not everyone's desperately keen on peel, particularly the peel that comes in mixed fruit because it's all hard, and if you buy a big lump of crystallised peel it's rather lovely, but or if you crystallise some yourself it's quite delicious. But the little bits you get in dried fruit, and I do find, in fact I have written to Mr. Sainsbury and said out of something like, I don't know, 12 ounces of dried fruit, a huge proportion, I can't remember now, a huge proportion was peel. And I said I thought that was a bit naughty, but they assured me I was absolutely wrong, and the peel to sultana and raisin and currant proportion was perfect. So it shut me up, didn't it? Right. So now I've got my 6 little tins, or however many of whatever size you want. I have 6 baby ones. I'm going to divide it up into 6 baby tins like this, and it's going to take 30 minutes at 180. Now clearly if you have a bigger tin, a bigger amount, I really didn't want to do that. It's going to take longer than that. But I'm going to put a spoonful in each tin. I don't know how many tins you can see a bit, can't you? I'm going to put a spoonful in each tin. Comme ça. And just keep doing that. And use the full mixture. You need to fill the kettle if you want a coffee. It's alright. You can talk, they know you live here. They won't mind. Of course, one way to see if you've done this right is to weigh them all. Who can be bothered? So you just sort of guess whether they look roughly the same. The bits you scrape off of the sides, of course, never have any fruit in, so they're just cake, which is a bit unfortunate for the poor old cake tin that gets those bits in, but there we are. There's a few currants left in there, so I'll stick those in there. Now, one way of measuring, if you have old-fashioned scales, is to put one on one side and one on the other and see how they measure up. Or you can put them on your scales, but I think if you look and see if they look much the same, I think that will do. Some might be very slightly bigger than the others, but they're a matter of muchness, aren't they? There we go. I'm going to put them on a baking sheet because that will be easier to lift them in and out. I'm going to cook them at 180 for 30 minutes and then I'm going to show you them. Now, I've just done exactly what I told you, I haven't done what I told you to do the other day, which was make sure my shelves are in the right place. So I've just had to adjust my shelves, and I've got 3 on each baking sheet, and I'll put them in the oven. See you later. Look at Ray, look. Look at me. Oh, that's hot. Ooh. Right, here are my finished cakes, and I hope you'll agree they look really lovely. Nice and golden brown. I've skewered them and they're all done inside. Now, they're not enormous. They're not enormous. You won't get huge slices of them, but as I say, because we are not feeding vast families of hungry boys coming home from school, which is what I used to have to do, and they would have eaten one of these probably at a sitting. But we may be making for the village fete, and you can sell one of those quite cheaply, and people are more likely to buy slightly smaller cakes than a great big cake, because again, the sort of people who buy, trying to get this in the middle for you, sort of people who buy a cake at the village fete are often a lady on her own, or an elderly couple, or a gentleman on his own who only wants just a slice of cake for his tea, and I think these are perfect for that. But you're more than welcome to make them in a two £2 loaf tins if that's what you wish, or one big round tin. But they smell lovely too. So that's apricot fruit cake. Sorry, I've done all of that talking with the cakes and not me. But the cakes are what you're interested in. But they really are very nice, and I hope you think they're worth having a go at, whatever size you want to make them. But you can adapt that depending on if you've got the family coming to tea, or as I say, if you're, could you make a cake for? Perfect. All right. I hope you like them, and I'll see you soon. Bye.